Okay, for this shirt to make sense, you have to see, like, the whole thing. It's beautiful. I love it. The Dead Don't Die is directed by Jim Jarmusch and stars Bill Murray and Adam Driver mostly, along with a shit ton of other people. Humongous cast in this film. And this is a comedy about a couple nights in a small town called Centerville where zombies rise from the dead because of polar fracking and weird lunar activity. And the small police force in town goes out on a hunt for the living dead. The trailer for this film was amazing, but I knew since it's a Jim Jarmusch film that it would not be as fast-paced as this trailer presents. Most of his films are very subtle. They have people sit back and just kind of have conversations and talk about small town life, Paterson being one of the best examples of that. And in many ways, this film is exactly that. Characters sit around and ponder small town things, while zombies happen to be coming out of the local cemetery. This film was a bit of a mixed bag for me. There are things I loved about it, namely Adam Driver and Bill Murray. Their dry humor is fantastic. Bill Murray's the king of dry humor. There's nobody better at it than he is. He can say just normal things that are just written down on a page, and for some reason it's fucking hilarious because Bill Murray's saying it. But Adam Driver and Bill Murray have amazing comedic chemistry with one another. Both of them have worked with Jarmusch before. Bill Murray in Broken Flowers, Adam Driver in Paterson, and they are terrific in the movie. Whenever they're on screen just talking, it's for some reason really fascinating. But whenever the film goes away from those characters, it's nowhere near as good. And since there are so many characters, the movie has a lot of subplots. Some of them tie into the narrative and some of them don't. Some characters in the film seem to be there specifically just to talk about the polar fracking issues that the news and the radio keeps reporting on. Which brings me to my biggest problem with this movie. The message in the film is extremely heavy-handed. Where I thought the movie was just going to be a fun zombie comedy with some very, very dry sarcasm throughout the entire movie, it actually does try to have a message in the end, and I don't think it was communicated very well. Jim Jarmusch is someone who usually understands subtlety, and his message is not even remotely subtle. Characters speak directly to us, the problems that are happening on the earth, leading to environmental issues that apparently result in zombies coming out of the cemeteries. And it felt very ham-fisted to me, just sort of like thrown in at the last second. There's also a subplot involving some kids at a juvenile detention center that goes nowhere. And a lot of the film's runtime is dedicated to these kids. That entire subplot could just be removed, and they could save maybe 10 minutes from the runtime, and we wouldn't have lost a thing. There's also some humor that falls very flat, and some sequences that don't seem to make any sense. One character that works for a gas station sees Selena Gomez, and she happens to be nice to him, and she smiles, and little pixie dust appears around her face. And it was just not funny. The entire audience was just silent, and that also went nowhere. There are things that are set up between characters that go nowhere, long conversations that people have about certain things that don't seem to have a punchline or a real meaning to be in the movie. And this is probably my biggest issue with some of Jarmusch's films, and especially this one, is that characters will sit around and talk, and maybe that looks real, and maybe that feels like real life, but if it's not really leading to anything in your narrative, then it feels lazy. It feels like an excuse to pad the runtime with a sequence that just pads the runtime and doesn't really bring us anything in the end. I love Jarmusch. Not only does he make films that other people don't have the guts to make, he's also from Akron, which is where I'm from, and so that's cool. He's from my hometown, and I respect anyone who can come from Akron and then do something big. Jarmusch and LeBron, that's what we got. Oh, and tires. From Akron, we also have tires. But sometimes his films do get out of hand with that, where characters just go off on these tangents, and they're just not very funny. Adam Driver is excellent, and so is Bill Murray. The film has a lot of self-referential scenes that I did not expect, where characters seem to be aware that they're in a movie. I wouldn't necessarily call it breaking the fourth wall. You could, but there's moments where it just feels like the film is telling us that we might not actually be watching characters, but we're watching these actors who are in this strange scenario, which can be really fun, and some of those jokes work, and some of them were a little cringeworthy. There's also a sequence with Tilda Swinton that was just like, what? What does that mean? It's just, there's a lot of choices in the movie that I could see could be funny for some, but they just felt out of left field and kind of lazy, and the message was handled very poorly. But as a strict, dry comedy that also has zombies, This movie does have some fun, and there were aspects of it that I did enjoy, but I can't really recommend that you go out in theaters and see this one. I'm going to give The Dead Don't Die a C+. This was about what I expected from the movie. They could have pushed the comedy a bit more, though, and definitely cut out certain sequences to make the runtime a little bit shorter. Nevertheless, if it's on Netflix or on Blu-ray, check it out. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. I look forward to more reviews very soon, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.